There was a time when ordinary people knew how to mend clothes, repair furniture, grow food, preserve meals, and keep tools working. They learned these skills because replacing everything was expensive, and paying someone for every small problem was not realistic. But convenience slowly replaced know-how. The surprising part is that many of those forgotten skills can still save money, prevent waste, and even become small income opportunities today. Here are 10 forgotten skills we may need more than ever. 1. Basic mending. A missing button was once a 5-minute repair, not a reason to replace a shirt. People knew how to patch holes, close loose seams, hem trousers, repair pockets, and keep clothing wearable for longer. This mattered because families owned fewer clothes, and those clothes had to survive years of work, school, weather, and hand-me-downs. Today, a small tear often turns into a shopping trip. But basic mending can delay replacement costs and keep perfectly usable clothing out of the bin. It can also become a small local service. People still need trousers shortened, buttons replaced, uniforms adjusted, patches sewn, and simple repairs completed. You do not need to become a professional tailor. Sometimes knowing how to use a needle and thread is enough to protect more money than people realize. 2. Sharpening and tool care. People once understood that tools needed maintenance. Kitchen knives were sharpened. Garden shears were cleaned. Wooden handles were replaced. Blades were oiled. Rust was removed before it spread. A useful tool was treated like an investment. Today, many people either struggle with dull tools or replace them earlier than necessary. But a quality knife, pair of scissors, garden tool or hand tool can last for years when properly maintained. Learning basic sharpening and tool care can save money and make everyday jobs easier. For someone who becomes skilled, it can also become a local service. Chefs, gardeners, salons, tradespeople, and homeowners still need knives, mower blades, scissors, axes, and tools sharpened. The lesson is simple. Maintaining what you own is usually cheaper than replacing it. 3. Cooking from what you already have. Older generations often knew how to cook without following an exact recipe. They understood what could become soup, what could be stretched with rice, beans, potatoes, pasta, or bread, what leftovers could become tomorrow's lunch, and what needed to be used before it spoiled. Today, many people open the fridge, see several ingredients, and still feel as though there is nothing to eat. Then they order takeout while food quietly goes to waste. Cooking without a recipe does not mean guessing blindly. It means understanding a few useful basics. How to make a soup. How to cook beans. How to turn eggs into a meal. How to make a simple sauce. How to combine leftovers without making them feel like leftovers. The more flexible you become in the kitchen, the less money you lose to food waste and convenience spending. 4. Preserving and planning food. Before refrigeration became common, food preservation was not a hobby. It was survival. Families canned, dried, salted, smoked, pickled, fermented, and carefully stored what they could. A successful harvest meant very little if the food spoiled before it could be eaten. Today, most households do not need a root cellar or shelves filled with preserved meat. But the principle still matters. Freezing leftovers prevents waste. Batch cooking can reduce takeout. Drying herbs can replace expensive store-bought packets. Planning meals around what is already in the fridge can stop groceries from being forgotten. Canning and fermentation can also be useful, but they must be done using reliable modern safety guidance. The forgotten skill is not simply putting food into jars. It is knowing how to turn today's food into tomorrow's meal. 5. Growing basic food. Not everyone has the space, time, or climate to grow a large garden, but many people used to know how to grow at least something. Herbs, tomatoes, beans, potatoes, onions, greens, peppers. A small garden gave a household more control over its food. Today, gardening is often treated purely as a hobby, but it can still be practical when you grow the right things. Fresh herbs are expensive to buy regularly, but can be easy to grow in containers. Salad greens can grow in small spaces. A few tomato or bean plants can produce more than beginners expect. The goal is not to become completely self-sufficient. It is to produce a little of what you regularly use. Even a small harvest builds confidence, reduces wasteful spending, and teaches you how food actually reaches the table. 6. Simple carpentry and furniture repair. People once knew how to fix a loose chair, repair a fence, brace a table, replace a board, hang a shelf, or adjust a cabinet door. They were not necessarily trained carpenters. They simply had enough knowledge to handle ordinary repairs. Today, many usable items are discarded because of one loose joint, broken handle, scratched surface, or damaged board. But solid wood furniture, shelves, tables, cabinets, and chairs can often be repaired. Learning how to measure, sand, glue, clamp, drill, and drive screws correctly can prevent unnecessary replacement costs. It can also create income opportunities. Secondhand furniture can sometimes be cleaned, repaired, refinished, and resold. People also pay for shelf installation, minor furniture repairs, flat pack assembly, and simple household fixes. You do not need to build a house to make carpentry valuable. Sometimes you only need to stop a good item from becoming rubbish. 7. Basic home maintenance. Not every repair should be attempted without professional help. Electrical work, major plumbing problems, structural damage, and gas appliances often require trained and licensed professionals. But older homeowners commonly knew enough to respond to simple problems before they became emergencies. They knew where the water shutoff valve was. They could use a plunger properly. They understood how to tighten a loose fitting, clear a basic trap, replace a simple washer, or notice early signs of a leak. They also cleaned regularly, checked for damage, tightened loose screws, and handled small problems before they grew. That knowledge matters because neglect is expensive. A slow leak can become water damage. A blocked gutter can damage a wall. A loose hinge can split a cabinet. The real skill is not doing everything yourself. It is knowing what you can safely handle, what needs attention now, and when to call a professional. 8. Budgeting by hand. Before budgeting apps and automatic notifications, people used notebooks, envelopes, ledgers, and pencil marks. They wrote down what came in. They listed what had to be paid. They planned grocery money. They tracked debt. And they counted what remained. The system was basic, but it made money visible. Today, spending can feel almost invisible. A card is tapped. A subscription renews. A small charge appears. Then another. Budgeting by hand forces you to slow down and look at the numbers. You begin to notice which expenses keep repeating, which bills are increasing, and where money disappears without adding much value. The tool is not the important part. The important part is attention. Money becomes easier to manage when it stops being vague. 9. Bartering and skill swapping. Cash was not always the only way people exchanged value. A neighbor might trade eggs for sewing. Someone might offer firewood in exchange for repairs. Babysitting could be swapped for garden produce. A home-cooked meal might be offered in return for help painting a fence. Bartering worked because people had skills, goods, time, and relationships. It can still work today. A designer might trade services with a photographer. A gardener might exchange produce with a baker. Someone who handles repairs might trade with someone who understands bookkeeping. The arrangement must be fair, clear, and agreed upon in advance. Taxes and local rules may also apply when services are exchanged commercially. But the underlying lesson remains useful. Money is valuable, but it is not the only kind of value people possess. 10. Making do creatively. The final skill may be the most important. Making do. It meant looking at what you had and finding another way forward. A jar became storage. Scrap wood became a repair. Leftovers became lunch. An old dress became an apron. A broken chair became spare parts. A backyard became a garden. A practical skill became a small service. Making do was not simply about being cheap. It was creative problem-solving under limits. Modern convenience often teaches us to solve every problem by purchasing something. But resourcefulness begins with different questions. What do I already have? Can this be repaired? Can it be reused? Could I borrow it? Could I trade for it? Could I learn to do it? That way of thinking does more than save money. It creates options. And having more options gives people greater control over everyday life. Forgotten skills did not disappear because they stopped working. They disappeared because convenience made them easier to ignore. But when life becomes expensive, skills like mending, cooking, growing, repairing, maintaining, and planning become valuable again. They changed the question from, "What should I buy?" to, "Can I fix this, reuse it, or turn it into something useful?" That is the real power of old school knowledge. It gives us back a little control. And in a world constantly encouraging us to spend more, that control may be worth more than ever. For more forgotten money lessons, practical history, and overlooked income ideas, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.